On this episode of the Cover 4 podcast, the guys will go over the wild card weekend, making our game predictions ahead of Super Wild Card Weekend. Welcome to the Cover 4 podcast. That's Jeff, that's Bradshaw, I'm Nolan. Super Wild Card Weekend just ahead of us. Looking back on Sunday.
I just hate, really quick, I just hate that
I know.
did
well,
that.
they got to build
we added an extra game on in each league. It's Super Wild Card Weekend now. Fuck off. Shut up.
What a hater. What a hater. I think, Jeff, he's upset because he predicted that Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers would make it into the playoffs.
I said they would make the Super Bowl.
You did not.
I said they'd go to the Super Bowl.
Holy crap. I did not know that. Wow. Well, good that you stuck to your word there and that you were actually honest and didn't change your answer. I appreciate that. But no Aaron Rodgers in the playoffs this time. No Detroit Lions, unfortunately. Restore the Roar. That's going to be next year. They that was a fun win for them.
Mm-hmm. But
that means that the Seattle Seahawks squeak into the playoffs with the 7 seed in the NFC. Geno Smith. What a story that has actually been for Seattle. That
a guy.
They trade away their franchise's best quarterback, one of the best players in their team's history, and he forgets how to play quarterback in Denver. And here comes Geno Smith, who
sets the record for single season passing yards.
Yep.
Suck on it, Russell Wilson, you piece of shit.
Bradshaw coming out firing in this early episode. Guys, let's dive in. Let's go right into Wildcard Weekend, make our predictions. We're not going to do a full playoff slate and give you our Super Bowl predictions, all of that jazz. We'd love to have Luca here for that if we do get to that. But so let's just do Saturday, Sunday, and of course the Monday nighter. Starting off with those Seattle Seahawks and Geno Smith. Really tough contest here, though. They start off in San Francisco against the Niners, who are winners of 10 straight. Jeff, do you like the chances that Seattle has going into San Fran?
Nope, not at all. Not even a little bit. I think that this is the Brock Purdy show. This is the San Francisco 49ers show. I think this is a nice, easy win for them. It could have been a little bit easier if Aaron Rodgers hadn't thrown so many ducks to Detroit Lions DBs. But, alas, we go on. And I think this will be a pretty easy game for them, I think. This is I'm assuming I think Jimmy G is nowhere near starting, right? I think it's gonna be Brock Purdy. No. Not that it really matters. I think Brock Purdy actually looks pretty good. I think the 49ers are in safe hands with him, actually, to be honest with you. And yeah, I think that this is a pretty easy one for them. I think they honestly run away with it. I don't think 2 touchdowns is crazy. I know that sometimes that Seahawks offense can get going this year, but that defense is nowhere near able to compete with this offense. And we saw in the last game with these two, Brock Purdy kind of just ran all over them, and Christian McCaffrey had his way with them. So I think this is a pretty easy win for the Niners to get into the next round.
You mentioned Jimmy Garoppolo. I think they had mentioned there's a chance he could be back, but you don't want to mess with something that's rocking and rolling with them right now. That being said, Deebo Samuel did practice the other day, but does he even play in this game? I don't think you need to rush him back because San Fran has looked that dominant. Bradshaw, are you in the same boat? You think San Fran can roll?
Yeah, I mean, San Francisco's outscored them 48-20 in their 2 games this season, so I'm feeling pretty confident that the Niners are going to have maybe not an easy game. Like, it was only 21-13 in their second game, so maybe they can keep it close. Maybe they can hang around, keep it within a score-adjacent game, 1-score adjacent kind of game. But yeah, I think the Niners are going to be, especially with the game being at home in San Francisco. I think, and there's the whole thing. Oh, it's tough to be a team 3 times. When you're a team as good as the Niners, I don't think it's that difficult. And the Seahawks are kind of bad lately.
That's what I was going to say. If the Seattle had looked how they had looked, and Geno included earlier this year, maybe it's a bit closer. Geno turning the ball over a little bit more, kind of risking some throws. And, time and time again, he'll make a fantastic throw. He had one Sunday against the Rams to Tyler Lockett in the back of the end zone. But San Fran's defense is just on a different level. So I'm going to rock with San Fran as well. They've been unbelievable. 10-game winning streak is so hard to do in any sport, let alone football, right? Let's stick with our Saturday slate here. This one should be a banger. I'm really looking forward to this. Chargers going to Jacksonville. The Jags just squeaked out that win against the Titans, and they didn't really look great at all. but they claim the AFC South crown. What a story from going, Nightmare City with Urban Meyer, having the worst record in football all the way to making the playoffs. So fun story there in Jacksonville. The Chargers, we expected them to be in the playoffs, at the beginning of the year. Kind of a weird end to the season for them. They squeak out a few victories, but, they lose to Denver on Sunday, a game they didn't need to win. But for some reason, Staley had his starters in for, a really long portion of the game, which was very unneeded. Mike Williams, they said he will be okay. But it's still a very bizarre scenario there.
Bosa got hurt too, didn't he?
Who did?
Did Bosa get hurt too? I thought I saw Bosa got
think
hurt
they
as well.
said he was okay though.
But that's still crazy. You're
too.
risking that. It's insane. You're risking that.
And somebody made a good point as well, is that, why do we rest these players for preseason when the games don't matter? And then why are you resting them for a regular season game when it really did not matter? You were locked into that 5 seed. So just a bizarre scenario there. I think this game is going to be a ton of fun. Bradshaw, who do you have though? Chargers or the Jags?
Oh, it's so tough. I like both of these teams quite a bit, especially lately. They're two of like the hotter teams coming in, like non-Bengals division, non-Niners division. They may be like two of the hottest teams in the NFL. I'm gonna say the Jags just because the game's at home. I know the game's at home. I'm gonna go with the Jags by just a little bit. But it's not going to shock me if the Chargers win. I think the Jags are playing really well right now, even though they just eked out that win against the Titans. It was a division game. Division games are always kind of weird. I like the way the Jags are playing right now. I think Trevor Lawrence in his first playoff game for Justin Herbert as well, but first playoff game for Trevor Lawrence in Jacksonville. The Jaguars fans are going to be rocking and rolling. They're going to be having a ton of fun. But they actually will. I think it'll be a cool environment there. Like back-to-back, essentially playoff games for them at home. So I'm going to go with the Jags in this one.
Yeah, we mentioned that the Jags just eked out that victory against the Titans, and it's a divisional game. But there were moments in that game where Jacksonville could have blown the doors off them, where they had that weird hook, kind of double option play they were trying, and then it was a fumble, and they were kind of at the 30 there. There was a moment, I think they had a 4th and 1 or 4th and 2 on the Titans side of the field and punted it away, where, if it's in most scenarios, Doug Peterson would go for that, which was bizarre. But regardless, Jeff, you now have to make a game prediction. Where is there a chance Justin Herbert, your arch nemesis, wins a playoff game? Or are you going to rock with Trevor Lawrence, the prince who was promised?
Well, it really doesn't feel like Justin Herbert even deserves to be there, to be honest with you.
Wow.
For so many reasons, for a multitude of reasons, doesn't feel like he deserves to be there. But also the Chargers, like you guys just said, like why? I remember seeing how many passing attempts Herbert had. I'm like, what are you guys doing? Like you guys are in. Just leave it alone. Give it a rest. You're facing probably, the easiest team. Having said that, and having said all I just said, I think this game is going to be pretty close. I think this is like a potentially 1-score type of game. I don't think that there's too much between either of these teams. I think it's going to be a really fun game though because of that. I think it's going to be very, very close. Hopefully it's not too much of a defensive kind of stinker, but I think that this will be a very close one. I imagine, given how banged up the Chargers have been the entire season and how they seemingly always are so banged up, actually, that should give the Jags enough of an edge to maybe pull this one away. But I'm not confident, but I will go with the Jags as well.
Wow. It's big time. And 2 Jags picks. Who would have thought? This is a rematch of these two teams. They played early in the year, and the Jags kicked their ass. This may have been Lawrence's best game we've seen of his young career. You'd have to look back at the score. I believe it was like 38-13. It was ugly. The Chargers have been playing much better of late, especially on the defensive side of the ball. But again, the Jags have been on a roll too.
38-10 in that first game.
Is it 38-10?
Week three, keep in mind.
Of course.
But still, 38-10. In LA.
In LA too. I'm gonna go with the Chargers. I feel foolish saying that because it just feels like a game where they could just stink it up, or Staley does something dumb, where Jacksonville can capitalize. But I just think there's too much talent on the Chargers, and this is going to be the best team that Jacksonville's faced in a couple of weeks. Where, yeah, I'm going to roll with it. I think Herbert has a day, and the Chargers squeak out a victory there against Jacksonville, and Herbert gets his first playoff win. I don't think we saw the leap from Jacksonville this season. They're going to be back. Like they had a few more pieces here and there, and Trayvon Walker, their number one pick from this past draft, can actually have some moments here and there in a sophomore year. They're going to be really solid. But I'm going to take the Chargers again in a close one. And again, I'm saying that with not a ton of confidence. I'm going to trust Herbert. I picked him to be my MVP at the beginning of the year. He's got to, do something in some way for me to feel good about, that pick earlier in the season. So I'm going to go with the Chargers to squeak out a victory there against Jacksonville. So now we hop over to Sunday. 3 games here. Now, the first game could be an absolute blowout, and that just depends who's going to be playing quarterback for Miami. No word on Tua being back yet. McDaniels just said, we'll see. When he's healthy, he'll practice and play, but we don't know yet. Teddy, my heart tells me Teddy's going to play. I think it's a pinky injury. Obviously, the Dolphins probably there's no shot they're going to beat the Bills. If it's Skylar Thompson, for sure, there's no like the spread's going to be disgusting. It's going to be like 14 in a playoff game. But Teddy with a pinky, I think they'd rather see him get thrown out there, and maybe the game's a little bit closer. But Jeff, Miami, Buffalo, I feel like anyway, whichever quarterback's starting, you're probably going to roll with Buffalo.
Yeah, I think even if Tua was to come out there, I just feel like we've seen so much of how not good he's looked recently, and it is obviously concerning. It just doesn't feel like they can really beat Buffalo, especially, we saw the difference too in both these teams actually, when it was like the extreme heat of Miami versus like the cold of Buffalo. Both teams seem to do a lot better in Buffalo. But I just think that this Buffalo team is so good. The only thing that can really seemingly stop them is Josh Allen throwing some weird interceptions, which he does do, and he like does pretty much every single week, it seems like. That's like the only thing that can maybe like give them a chance. But especially if Tua's not playing, they pretty much have no chance. I'm sorry. As much as I like what Mike McDaniel's doing with the team, I just don't see an avenue for them to win. But the Bills have been like arguably the best team in the league. They really do, honestly, are, in my opinion, they're just as deserving as the Chiefs or the Bengals for that number 1 seed in the AFC. And it just feels like this should be not an easy win, but a comfortable one for them, in my opinion.
It's pretty wild to think, this Miami team, they'd won 5 straight. There was a chance they were going to win the AFC East. Tua gets hurt. They lose, 5 of their last 6. And Miami went all in at the trade deadline too, right? They got Bradley Chubb. They added some more pieces here and there. That's going to be a weird offseason for them where they spent a ton of money. Terran Armstead, obviously Tyreek Hill gave them the big deal. What is going to be the health of Tua moving forward? And again, they don't have a first round pick this year too. That got taken away with all the weird Tom Brady, Sean Payton stuff in the offseason. But weird times in Miami. Bradshaw, I'm assuming you're going to roll with Buffalo as well.
Yeah, like if Tua was like healthy, I would actually healthy, I would consider the Dolphins. Like that game in Buffalo was close, and like Tua played really well in that game. But Josh Allen was unbelievable in that second game against the Dolphins. Like he had like 380 total yards and 4 scores. Like it was unbelievable. Diggs didn't even have that big of a day. Like yeah, like the Bills are really, 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 really good. I know that's a cold take, but yeah, I don't think whether it's Skylar Thompson or Teddy Bridgewater, I don't know, they signed Josh Dobbs. And like, oh look how good he was for the Titans. Let's pick him up. No, it doesn't matter. Unless Tua was legitimately fully healthy, the Dolphins have no chance in this game.
Yeah, I'll just quick and easy. Buffalo's going to win. It's really at this point, how much do they win by? It sucks for Miami that Tua is not healthy, and Teddy's not the quarterback that Tua is, obviously, and Skylar Thompson definitely isn't that. So yeah, we'll see what happens. But if you need a good nap on Sunday, maybe you can sleep during that one. That's the 1 o'clock window.
Maybe the 4 o'clock game as well.
How dare you? As we hop to the 4 o'clock window, I The only part of this podcast that has a playoff team here, the Minnesota Vikings hosting the New York Giants in the 4 o'clock window. I'll get it started.
Let's check. I want to check the Vikings point differential compared to our three non-playoff teams. Luke is not here, but anyway, carry on. Go ahead.
I'm sure Atlanta's still in the negatives, but I mean Chicago's definitely in the negatives, and I bet you the Patriots are positive.
I mean, the Vikings were also negative, but
I understand that. They are. I am fine to say they are the worst 13-win team in NFL.
But that's I make fun of this, but you have to enjoy it. Like
it's
you've won 13 games. Like I can't say anything. The Falcons are a terrible team. It's just really funny that they're -3.
and it's actually wild too. I think the Vikings last year were 8-9 and had a positive point differential.
Yeah.
But it was, and that's the difference. I think it was in those one-score games they had a really bad record, and this year in the one-score games they've been unbelievable. So, pretty wild for the Vikings. Regardless,
the Bears were -137.
That's bad. That's bad. Hey,
no wonder they had the worst record in the NFL.
That's what got them the number 1 overall pick, right?
That's true.
It's looking up for the Bears. So Vikings, Giants, that's going to 4 o'clock window on the Sunday. Giants have looked pretty good of late. Daniel Jones, this is his best season of his career. Saquon has slowed down in the second half, but the Giants defense is kind of sneaky good, and the Vikings defense is horrible. But the Vikings offense, of course, has been great all season. They're banged up, though. That O-line is going to be in rough shape. Brian O'Neill, their second best offensive lineman behind Christian Darrisaw, out for the game. I believe it was a torn hamstring. So, Vikings are going to be in tough with Kayvon Thibodeau, who's been great of late. Azeez Ojulari's been, solid for the Giants too. I hate being the guy who has to pick my team. I'm gonna go with the Vikings. I just think this is going to be a close game. Again, these teams faced a couple weeks back. They needed a 61-yard field goal to win it. I just think the game is at home. The Vikings are going to do all they can to get the ball in Justin Jefferson's hands and get it out quick, right? Because this pass rush for the Giants could cause some issues. Obviously, the Vikings O-line I've just mentioned is dog crap. But I think a low-scoring game, a close game, but the Vikings squeak one out, win by 3 or 4. Bradshaw, who do you pick in this one?
Well, it's funny because you're like, oh, the game's at home, and they're going to try and get the ball in Justin Jefferson's hands. That game on Christmas Eve was in Minnesota, and Justin Jefferson had 12 catches, and they still lost that game. Man, like I honestly forgot this game happened. I forgot they played this year. I was like, oh, the Vikings gonna be at home. They should be able to take care of the Giants. So they did. I mean, they didn't earlier this year.
They did. They needed the field goal. They needed a heroic field goal.
I mean, that's what everyone has said about every one of the Vikings wins this year. That they needed a field goal. They needed a field. They shouldn't have won that game. They needed a field goal. Yeah, boy, oh boy. I thought this game. I'm gonna just stick with my gut anyway, because I saw the line and I saw it was like Vikings -3, and I was like, that seems a little low for the Vikings with 13 wins. Not again, completely forgetting that this game happened. I'm still going to trust the Vikings to at least get through this week. Get through this week of the playoffs. You can beat the Giants. The Giants are not good. I keep talking about how fraudulent the Vikings are. The Giants are even worse than that.
Yeah.
Even though they're only like a -6 point differential. But yeah, I'm gonna trust the Vikings to get. I think they have a slightly more talented team overall. Offensively, they're way more talented. They have a more talented team. I think they're better coached, even though I do like Brian Dable. Yeah. Actually, probably it might be a wash there. I'm gonna go with the Vikings. But boy, oh boy, if they lose this game, you and the Vikings fans that we work with, not going to hear the end of it.
I am fine with the Vikings winning this game because I know they're going to get the doors blown off them next week against San Francisco. I already know that it's going to be ugly, but I need a victory here from Minnesota. Jeff, who are you taking, the Giants or the Vikes?
Nolan, as my friend, I wanted to see you happy. That's one of the most important things to me. But as my rival, fuck you. So I think that the Vikings are going to lose this one in embarrassing fashion. I think it'll still be close though, so it'll be fun for the rest of us. It'll be fun for you to an extent, but I think the anxiety will eventually crush you, and then we'll have to come back on this podcast after that. And we'll kind of be your therapy, I think. So
I was going to ask Jeff. He said embarrassing fashion. I was like, so do you think it's going to be a blowout or a close loss, but any loss to the Giants in the playoffs is an embarrassing loss. So
It's embarrassing no matter what.
I would rather them lose in embarrassing fashion in a way of like a Kirk Cousins pick six or something stupid, instead of getting blown out at home.
Overtime, Kirk does a classic, we want the ball and we're going to score.
Something.
And then gets picked six.
Because no matter what's going to happen, people are going to talk about this. People are going to talk about them losing.
Oh, yeah. We'll see what happens. But again, I know the game's going to be close. Like, never really would you have a 13-win team at home as the 3 seed and, in a wild card game and it be close. But I know that's going to be the case, unfortunately. Let's hop to the Sunday nighter. This is going to be an interesting one. Baltimore, Cincinnati, third time they're playing. They're playing in back-to-back weeks, of course. Really, this game's just up in the air. Is Lamar Jackson going to play? Now, this is going to be a conversation for another day, too, is there's been rumbles that Lamar Jackson, and I'm fine with him doing it, too, is he is healthy. It's just he's sticking it to the Ravens saying, here's how bad your team looks without me. Here's how putrid the offense looks without me. Pay me my money. And I'm fine with him doing that. But does he hold out for this playoff game? I don't know. Jeff, who are you taking here? If let's say Lamar plays, who are you taking? And then if it's Tyler Huntley or Anthony Brown, I'm assuming we're all taking Cincinnati.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a no-brainer. If Lamar Jackson's not starting, I don't think the Ravens have a chance. I think the Bengals are, if not the best offense generally, then maybe they're the best team in the NFL. Again, based on form, I really just think that they've, figured so much out. Hard to kind of deny them at this point. But even with Lamar Jackson, and if that is true, Nolan, good for him, honestly, because the Ravens have stuck it to him in a lot of different ways, just not getting him any help, especially receiving wise. And I think that at the end of the day, even if Lamar plays, I just feel like this offense is a little bit too far behind Cincinnati to keep up, even though their defense is good. I don't think that they really have what it takes to beat the Cincinnati Bengals. So I'll take the Bengals by a score.
Bradshaw, what about you?
Like the way Jeff says Bengals, calls them the Bengals.
The
Bengals. Yeah. I mean, whether Lamar plays or not, I'm going to take the Cincinnati Bengals. They've won 8 in a row. Obviously, again, they just beat them, but that was without Lamar. They only lost by 2 points when Lamar did play in week 5. And the Bengals are a lot better than that now. So I'm going to go with Joe Burrow and the boys in Cincinnati. I still think it's baffling they almost didn't have a fucking home playoff game, but whatever, that's fine.
I know. I'm going to roll with the Bengals as well, regardless. That is going to be a wild scenario. And again, conversation for another day. If Lamar holds out and Baltimore just moves on from him, because he's beloved in Baltimore, clearly. And I think he wants to play in Baltimore, but he deserves his money. So if they let him walk or, move him in some way, holy crap, that would be
just come play in Atlanta instead.
There you go. Yeah. Hey, Desmond Ridder, 2 straight wins, buddy.
He looked great last week. Well, kind of. Anyway,
yeah.
No one cares.
I'm going to go with Cincinnati. I agree that they are the cream of the crop in the AFC, the cream of the crop in the NFL. Yeah, they're on a different level right now. Joe Burrow. I don't know who's going to finish second in MVP voting. We know Mahomes is probably going to win at this point, but if I had a second place vote, I think it would go to Joe. Just he's unbelievable. But yeah, let's roll with the Bengals too. Monday nighter, the Dallas Cowboys heading to Tampa Bay to face the 8-9 Buccaneers with Tom Brady. Should be an interesting one because we know this isn't a generic a regular 8-9 team. Obviously, it's Tom Brady. At quarterback. This is a team that won a Super Bowl 2 years ago. This is a team that had a really competitive game against the Rams in the NFC divisional round last year. Obviously the Rams ended up winning the Super Bowl. Dallas in moments has looked like one of the best teams in football. In other moments, just this past Sunday, they look horrible and Dak Prescott looks horrible. Bradshaw, where are you going here?
I've been big. I've been big on the Cowboys. I've been talking. Every time you ask me, you're like, who's the best team in the NFC? Eagles, Niners, Vikings. I was like, well, I got to keep talking about the Cowboys. We got to keep talking about the Cowboys. My God, this team looks so bad lately. They just look awful. Like going through the last few games, they lost the Commanders. That was a bad loss. They looked like crap for most of that game against Tennessee. They're lucky that it was just Josh Dobbs playing and an actual competent NFL quarterback. They gave up 34 points to Gardner Minshew. The offense looked good in that game, though. I will give them that. Lost to the Jags. Were looking pretty good. Gave up 40 points, though. Good heavens. Texans, that was a really close game. Like the Texans almost won that game. That was kind of the first one where we'd be like, oh, time to be concerned. And I mean, I know they blew at the Colts, but that was like a one-score game going into the fourth quarter, and the Colts just Coltsed all over themselves.
Yeah,
like this team hasn't looked that good. And it was a one, and then they in week 12 they had a one-score game against the Giants. This team hasn't looked great for a little while. If this was any other team, though, I would have probably picked against them. They're going to beat the Buccaneers. The Buccaneers, I keep saying, like, hey, watch out for them. They're still a very talented team. Tom Brady is Tom Brady, and that's still the case. They're still very talented, and Tom Brady is still Tom Brady. But my God, I do not trust them in this game. I mean, they held them to 3 points in week 1, but that's week 1, not week. Well, what will this be? Week 19. I think the Cowboys are going to win this game. I don't think it's going to be a blowout by any means. I think the line reflects that. I think they're only a 3-point favorite. I'm going to take the Cowboys, but God, I do not feel as good about them as I did a few weeks ago.
Jeff, what about you?
This feels like what Bradshaw said with the Cowboys, like getting so much worse. It does feel like the Buccaneers have gotten, a little bit better. I don't think that they're like any good, if I'm being honest about it, but they do feel like they're getting a little bit better. They're figuring some stuff out. I don't know if Todd Bowles will ever figure out what timeouts are and what they do, and but the value that they hold to your team, especially late in games. And I think honestly that might be the end of this one. Honestly, is that I feel like he's just going to mismanage this game in some way, shape, or form, even if they do somehow manage to keep it close. And that will end up killing them. I do feel like this should be close. I feel like it's weird that these teams have matched up twice, and Tom Brady's not lost the Cowboys, I think, ever in his career, for one, but also like it's just crazy. Like this game's got to come in full circle and everything. And man, I guess I gotta take the Cowboys, but it's frustrating. It's really frustrating. I don't like doing this because they like Bradshaw said, they just don't feel very good, even though they clearly are very talented. It's one of the most frustrating things ever. I am in a sense, even though I kind of hate them, almost want them to lose. So Mike McCarthy gets fired and Sean Payton comes in, and then they figure it out. But at the same time, that would also piss me off too. So maybe I shouldn't let that happen. Cowboys by a field goal.
I don't know what to think of either of these teams, because I do think Dallas at their best is one of the best teams in football. Their defense, we've seen them have games where, against the Vikings, and not saying the Vikings are the greatest team on earth, but that Dallas defense looked unbelievable. And then we've seen games where their offense cooks it up, right? You mentioned that Eagles game, Bradshaw, and, Dak looked fantastic there and had some unbelievable throws in that game. Whereas Tampa offenses looked horrible all year. It's disgusting. This is a level of Pittsburgh, New England offense. But their defense is still good. Their defense in moments has looked good this year. We mentioned that week 1 game against Dallas. That's the one where Dak got hurt in. I think he got hurt at halftime or just before half. And that game was a blowout at that point anyway. I think Tampa's going to win. And it feels like one of those scenarios where here, they luck out, they get a home playoff game, and Tom Brady has a great game. And I hope the script is, let's not run the ball. This is the worst rushing team in football by a wide margin. And they just say, Tom, you call a bunch of plays and figure out what you like to do here. Hit Godwin, hit Evans, even if it's Bernard in the flat, whoever it is, just call up some good plays here. The offensive line has been okay. They're still a little banged up, but again, Dallas's defense in moments has looked great, but of late they haven't looked good, which would scare me. So I again, this is one I don't have confidence in. It feels like Tampa's going to win this game, and everything's going to be a meltdown in Dallas once again. And I don't know what would happen. I think there's key pieces you would hold on to, but I think you would look at Kellen Moore and Mike McCarthy and say, see you later, and bring in somebody new to figure that scenario out, because there's too much talent on this team to be losing a playoff game each and every year. So I'm going to go with Tampa. Not a lot of confidence, in that answer, but of course, Tom Brady seems like he's going to squeak another one out. That is the Super wild card slate. I know Bradshaw loves the super added to that. Those are our game predictions. Of course, we'll wrap up that wild card weekend for you in a podcast next week and do our predictions for the divisional round. And hopefully we have Luca for that one. That should be a ton of fun. And keep your eye out for our end of season awards. Of course, we'll do all the generic awards and maybe we'll add some fun ones in there too. This is the Cover 4 podcast. That's Jeff. That's Bradshaw. I'm Nolan. We'll see you guys soon.
Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please drop a like, share it with your friends, and subscribe to Lingo Sports and Lingo News for a whole lot more just like this.